My next Patreon question is from Andrew, who wants me to compare two famous film director brothers. Whose filmography do you prefer overall, Ridley or Tony Scott? I think both of them are very talented directors, who managed to build distinct filmographies that perfectly showcase their abilities. While Ridley Scott tends to direct a variety of projects within different genres, Tony Scott primarily directed fast-paced action films, and I think there's value in both the careers they laid out for themselves. Whose filmography do I like more? Well, I admit to having a preference for Ridley Scott, although Tony definitely was not a slouch. When you look over his body of work, Ridley Scott always seems willing to try new things, and more often than not, he succeeds. This is a director whose first film was a period piece. Then he made a monster movie, followed by a detective story set in a futuristic world. And that kind of variety has inspired Ridley's choice of projects since then, although he has shown a particular interest towards science fiction and historical epics. My personal favorite Ridley Scott film is Blade Runner. From the atmosphere to its influential and rain-soaked depiction of the future, to the way the characters deal with their purpose in life, it's a movie I find myself getting really sucked into. Gladiator is another favorite of mine, with its exciting action and recreation of the Roman Empire. I also have a high opinion of The Martian and All the Money in the World, and I also admired when he went completely outside of his wheelhouse, well, more than usual, with the comedy Matchstick Men and the romance A Good Year. Have I been enthralled with everything Ridley Scott has directed? Well, I will admit to not being the biggest fan of Legend, which was a bit too kitschy for my taste, and I really did not like The Counselor. However, those two movies certainly have people who appreciate what they're going for, and that's great. He has one of those filmographies where everyone seems to have different favorites and least favorites, and you're not going to hear the same opinion of his output twice. I think that's a credit to the varied works he has directed, and I look forward to his next film, The Last Duel, and how I end up feeling about that one. As for Tony, like I said, he's stuck mainly to action films that attempt to pump the audience with adrenaline. There's a heavy emphasis on fast cutting and a constantly moving camera. I'm usually not the biggest fan of when the camera is frequently shaking, but more than not, Tony Scott found an okay balance with how he handled it. Of the movies of his I've seen, True Romance is my favorite. Aided by a screenplay written by Quentin Tarantino, it's an entertaining satire of Hollywood mixed with a crime movie and manages to excellently utilize its cast, both the leads as well as the bit players. I recently watched Crimson Tide for the first time, and I thought that presented an exciting submarine thriller. Tony Scott made good use of the small location, and we get some really well-acted scenes of Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman facing off as they attempt to take control of the nuclear missiles on this submarine. And I know Beverly Hills Cop 2 tends to be looked down upon, but I thought Scott mixed the action elements with the comedy quite well. Looking at his other films, like Top Gun, Unstoppable, and Days of Thunder, you really sense a director fascinated by the machinery of the vehicles we use, as well as the speed they can accelerate to. Something I will admit, though, is I do think the characters in a number of his films can be rather one-dimensional. We get the basics of who they are, but not nearly enough to make me care about them. Although even with that, he's still got solid work from his actors, and it's easy to see why the likes of Denzel Washington, Tom Cruise, and Christopher Walken were often happy to work with him again. Tony Scott sadly died in 2012, but I think his legacy lives on in the pulse-pounding action films he made. Now let me know in the comments whether you prefer the work of Ridley Scott or Tony Scott, and thank you for your question, Andrew.